Have you ever just wanted to try a new game one day, searching, watching some top 10 games you should playlist, not expecting much, but one managed to catch your eye? The brief explanation of the game ticks all of your interests. So you download it, not expecting much, and it might not be a life-changing experience like the games you've played before, but at most, it should be a decent time. But when you actually sat down and played the game through and through, finishing it, holy crap. That was the best thing you've ever played. This is Sorry We're Closed, an old-school PS1 style horror game, not only in graphics and visuals but also its gameplay. Developed by Alamode Games and published by Akupura Games, it released all the way back on November 14th, 2024 on PC, and eventually receiving console ports on March 6, 2025, like the PS4, the PS5, the Xbox One, the Xbox Series, and the Nintendo Switch. Sorry We're Closed has got to be one of my favorite games that I have played this year, and it has definitely become one of my favorite games of all time. Maybe even top one. I'm not trying to be hyperbole here, but this game has become so important to me with its story, and I highly recommend you check it out. This game isn't that deep, unlike other games out there. This is solely my opinion. But obviously, my opinion is objectively true, and I say that this is the best experience I've had in a video game. So if you haven't played it yet, go on, I'll wait here. Firstly, what is Sorry We're Closed all about? We follow a young adult woman working as a cashier in a corner shop named Michelle, watching a TV show called Dying Petals, while a customer named Daryl vents to Michelle about his struggling love life. We tend to him, close our little corner shop, and at this point in the game, we get to walk around and talk to some of the residents that occupy some of the shops, some of them being Michelle's friends and key characters in the story. This is also how we learn some stuff about Michelle's past. The most notably is that she just got dumped by her ex, specifically Leslie, the actor from Dying Petals. Well, I say that she just got dumped, but it's actually been 3 years since the breakup, so obviously she's not doing well. After catching up with her friends, we finally head to bed. But while sleeping, she gets visited by a demon, the Duchess. She marks Michelle as her new lover, and she has two choices. A, either Michelle has to love her back, or B, she dies. Now personally, I would have accepted the fact that a hot demon lady chose me as her new bride, but unfortunately, Michelle is still reeling from her ex, so she decides against it. And for the rest of the game, Michelle needs to find a way out of the curse, and throughout the game, we travel through various locations, from the city's abandoned subway, to an abandoned aquarium, to a crypt under the abandoned church, just to find what we need to escape the Duchess's hands. And as you can imagine, this is where we get to the main gameplay of Sorry We're Closed, which is pretty good. Like I said in the beginning, it does have that classic PS1 horror game mechanics to it, like the fixed cinematic camera angles, but when you actually shoot enemies, the gameplay is completely different. Firstly, instead of having an auto-aim, or manually aiming with a fixed cinematic camera still focused on you, the game turns into a first-person shooter when you stand still and aim. On top of that, the game has a mechanic called the third eye. Now, the third eye essentially allows you to see both the demon realm and reality. With this third eye, you can stun enemies for a short period of time to shoot their hearts, in which you can easily kill them than just shooting them normally. And when you shoot their hearts enough times, or not missing your shots when shooting a tough enemy, you unlock the Heartbreaker, a powerful gun being able to permanently kill strong enemies or one-shot weaker ones, except the bosses of course. The gunplay is simple, easy to understand, and most importantly, really fun and satisfying when you blow away enemies with the help of your third eye and blasting away some of the weaker ones with your Heartbreaker, breaking their hearts. And the game is pretty generous when it comes to giving you resources like ammo and health. Now do keep in mind, I only played this game on the normal difficulty, so I'm not sure if resources will be rarer than normal. As for the boss fights in the game, they're fun, but they all play the same. You charge up your Heartbreaker by shooting parts of them or waves of enemies, and then you use the Heartbreaker until they're dead. For me, it's still pretty fun thanks to the satisfying gunplay that the game has. It also helps that the boss fights are very different when it comes to what it represents, its music, the character behind the boss, which I find all of them very interesting and enjoyable. But I can definitely see the criticism that the bosses are way too similar in terms of how you beat them. Now the game only lasts about 6 to 7 hours. Now a part of me does like that. I do like it when a game doesn't overstay its welcome or slogs on for the sake of playtime. But another part of me would really prefer if it was a bit longer, more time to experience this world and its characters more. This isn't really a criticism. The game is very much well paced. It manages to showcase the different characters' wants, needs, who they are as a person, their motivations, along with the story itself. At no point did the game feel like a slog to go through. No segment or character moments felt like filler. But for me, I would have loved to see these characters more. Speaking of the characters, let's get into the aspects of why this game has become my favorite game of all time. The story, theme, and message in this game really resonated with me. I do very much like any genre of story as long as it has romance mixed in it, and now you can see why this PS1 looking game became my favorite. And with the game tackling about how love can be very transformative, I was already hooked. And it also tackles the topic of breakups, specifically breakups after spending so much time with the person you loved, and what one would go through when they find themselves in this position. Now, obviously, we wouldn't literally get visited by a tall hot demon claiming us as their new lover, and have to go through different places to find the necessary items to defeat them and reclaim our freedom. And obviously, I would have accepted the fact that I'm the tall hot demon's new lover. This game has 4 endings in total, each ending representing what one would become after experiencing a heartbreak, and I will be discussing them in order from the worst ending to the best one. I also won't really go that in depth with the 3 endings. This is really only for context when discussing the best ending in the game. So, without further delay, now, Lucy's ending is by far the worst ending that the game has. Now for context, Lucy is the quiet girl wearing glasses just next to the phone booth at the beginning of the game, and is actually the phone operator that talks to you every time you save at a phone booth or a phone in general. And to recap, when you first escape the first area in the game, you're summoned to the Duchess's hotel, where you'll meet some familiar faces, some of your friends actually being demons. And this is where you meet Lucy again, but this time in her true form. She offers you a car ride home, and this is where she proposes a deal to you. She offers a way out of the Duchess's deal, and all you have to do in return is help her out. And to make sure you say yes, she says she can make Leslie, your ex, love you again. Once you say yes and do everything she asks, you defeat the Duchess, but once Michelle reminds Lucy of their deal, Lucy double-crosses Michelle. And we see Lucy's human form was actually a lifeless body. She ditches it and now inhabits Michelle's body to use it as her own. Michelle is still aware of what's going on after Lucy inhabits her body. She can still see and hear, but she can't control her body. We escape the Duchess's curse only to jump in a far worse situation. And what's worse is that Leslie, Michelle's ex, goes to visit her to try and reconnect, but Michelle isn't in control of her body anymore, so she's forced to watch as Leslie tries to talk to her only to be disappointed again, thinking Michelle is still angry and bitter. So, Leslie leaves and Michelle is forced to watch Leslie leave her again. Now, if we were smart, Lucy's offer was obviously a trap, too good to be true sort of thing. And even then, if Lucy was keeping her promise, this goes against one of the core messages of this game. You cannot make someone fall in love with you. Love is not a transactional thing. The most ironic thing is that this ending is the trickiest to get because it involves a lot of specific steps to be done in order. So you put in so much effort only to be greeted by a bad outcome, which honestly reflects what would happen if you did try to make someone forced to love you. Obviously not by any supernatural means. I mean, I really wouldn't be surprised if someone already did try that, but instead with lying, gaslighting, really any kind of manipulation or lying, if you use that to force someone to love you, even with so much effort, that will only get you so far and will definitely end in a horrible outcome. Now, Clarissa's ending, while is less depressing and heartbreaking than Lucy's ending, it's still sad seeing what happens to Michelle here, not physically but mentally. Now for context, again, Clarissa is one of Michelle's friends and works at the local club run by Daryl, the local gangster and the customer who was complaining about their love life at the beginning of the game. Also, he's the reason why the Duchess even chose Michelle in the first place, since he works for the Duchess. Now, when you first visit the Duchess's hotel, you meet Clarissa again, but this time in her angel form. You talk to her, and she tries to convince you to help her get rid of Daryl, since he's kind of a douchebag to everyone in the street you live in, even kidnapping a poor vendor named Violet and force her to make her famous pain chocolate. I hope I said that right. And Daryl's been an ass recently since Clarissa uses his bar to get rid of demons, and she offers you to be the new owner of Daryl's bar and become the Duchess's henchwoman if you get rid of Daryl. Choosing this ending, Michelle becomes so bitter and angry. While yes, she does gain power and confidence, she honestly just becomes another Daryl. You even complain about your love life just like Daryl to a poor cashier, just like at the beginning of the game. I don't even think Michelle moved on, mainly because she still talks about Leslie, which is honestly sad given what she's been through. She's definitely gained a lot in this ending, but I still consider this a bad ending since while she acts all tough and mighty, with what she says to the shop clerk, I wouldn't be surprised if she's still yearning after Leslie and still didn't learn anything on why Leslie even left her in the first place. Or maybe she did move on from Leslie because in this ending, we see Leslie's character in Dying Petals dead. This could be a metaphor of Michelle actually moving on and changing as a person, but not in a good and healthy way, since she's much more aggressive and angry now after her breakup. Now, Robin's ending I wouldn't say is bad, but rather pretty neutral actually. It still is a bit sad honestly. For context, again, for the third time? Robin is one of Michelle's bestest friends, and is found out to be a demon by Michelle when going into the first area of the game, since Robin is helping Michelle out to escape the Duchess's curse. While Robin does ask Michelle for a favor in return, I wouldn't say it's a huge favor since she's only asked Michelle to look out for an artifact to help out Robin and Benedict, her partner. This ending is definitely not as sad or as depressing as Lucy's ending or Clarissa's ending, but it is still pretty sad when you do think about it a little bit. Michelle got what she wanted. She wanted her old life back. She's no longer in the Duchess's crosshair. But that's the thing. Michelle got what she wanted, but not what she needed. After all she's been through, after what her friends and the people around her have been through, after seeing them grow and move on, Michelle is just there. Not any different than what was going on at the beginning of the game. Heck, her final dialogue is just her saying some things never change. Now there isn't any voice acting in the game, but those words, those three little dots tell me more than enough that Michelle is just thinking about those what if scenarios. What if she did try to become the Duchess's henchwoman? What if she did take the Duchess's offer? What if she tried to love the Duchess back? I think we all had that moment in our lives, and this ending represents that fear. The fear of not trying new things, sticking to your status quo, and having that looming anxiety of not risking or trying new things, and having that regret sooner or later. That's why I can't really say this is a completely happy ending. Michelle's friends have moved on, even had their lives changed for the better, Meanwhile, she's still stuck in a state where she was at the beginning of the game, drifting through life. But what if she actually did reach out for the Duchess's hand? Samuel's ending is by far the best ending in the game, since not only do we see Michelle actually being happy, but also the Duchess. Again, for the last time now, let's go over the context for this ending. While going home from your first adventure with Robin, you encounter two angels, Samuel and their colleague. Now at first, when you try to talk to them, Samuel's colleague will pull them away to try and not be associated with you, but you can find Samuel again at the same area the next night. Here we talk to Samuel about their problems, specifically their boyfriend. Now Samuel's boyfriend is a demon, and Samuel is an angel, so you can see that there is a problem. To keep it short, Samuel's boyfriend keeps pushing him away since every time Samuel spends time with him, his halo keeps getting more and more rusted to the point where Samuel will become a human. And so, Samuel asks you, would you love a demon? A question not only for Samuel but Michelle as well in reference to the Duchess. The Duchess is such an interesting character to me. While on the surface she seems like your typical demon antagonist, the more you learn about her throughout the game, you can't help but feel empathy or sympathy for her since ultimately she's really only looking for someone to love her. And might I say that her and Michelle aren't really that different from one another. Both of them had bad breakups from their partner, which left them in a state of just not being able to move on, just drifting throughout life. Like the Duchess searching for that attention and affection that her ex-lover used to give her, or Michelle just repeating her same routine every single day, still yearning and reminiscing about Leslie. And it's not just what they've been through, both of their exes left for the same reason. That being Michelle and the Duchess's view on love was very superficial when they were both still with their exes. The Duchess's definition of love was just physical, emotional affection and attention. And while yes, romantic love can have that, it shouldn't be just that. And judging by the Duchess's dialogues, it was really apparent that she was the one asking for affection and not giving it back to her ex. Or at least that is what love means to the Duchess. Meanwhile, Michelle was the one giving Leslie affection when Leslie asks for it. But there wasn't any actual oomph or feeling to the affection, or that was the only thing Michelle was doing to Leslie, just flirting and affirmations. I say this mainly because of the in-universe show Dying Petals. I wouldn't really be surprised if Dying Petals is supposed to be a reflection of Michelle and Leslie's old relationship, considering that in each ending, Dying Petals ends in different ways. Like in Lucy's ending, we see Leslie's character in the show talking to someone named Canary, which is an obvious stand-in for Michelle, telling her to talk to her more, Leslie wishing that if Canary had talked to her more or communicated with her more, then they would have become something more special. Maybe this is in reference to what Michelle had done before, where all she did was just physical affection and not enough actual feelings for Leslie. Or maybe this is a reference to Michelle's current situation, where she literally can't talk to Leslie because Lucy is controlling her. Thus, they can't grow to be special together anymore or get back together anymore. In Clarissa's ending, Leslie dies in the show, and Canary is surprisingly not being too sad about it, and even saying that spending time with her was worthless, which is weird since at the beginning of the game, Canary does show her love to Leslie's character in the show, so to have her character do this 180 is very weird. Kinda like how Michelle ends up in this ending. She does somewhat get over Leslie, but in an unhealthy way. She became a spiteful and egotistical person, someone who now seeks power and fame to prove themselves that they weren't the problem in their past relationship. And Robin's ending? We don't even get an actual ending to Dying Petals because nothing has changed. Michelle, after all she's been through, still chooses to go back to her old routine since she's afraid of change after what had happened. Just kinda like how the show doesn't exist because it's still going. But Samuel's ending changes this. Before the final fight with the Duchess, Michelle does encounter her a couple of times and tries to reason with her. After all the things Michelle has seen and heard, from Samuel's problems, determination, and loyalty to his demon boyfriend, to Robin's undying love to Benedict, literally almost throwing her life away to set him free, after seeing them go through so much for their loved ones, Michelle finally gets it. Love cannot be demanded or forced. It cannot just be asked for. It's not always going to be about affection. It's not always going to be happy, and sometimes it will be painful for both sides. But that's part of the course. You need to be willing to overcome any problems that come with your relationship. You need to show them you actually love them, not just by flirting or physical affection, but by actually being there for them, both physically and emotionally. Don't say or do things just when they ask for it or demand it but not give it back. That's not how love works. It's a two-way street. It's a two-way deal between you two, between you and your partner. Throughout the encounters, Michelle tries to reason with the Duchess, but she won't listen. They fight and fight until Michelle wins, and the Duchess admits defeat. On her knees and exhausted after the fight, she finally understands Michelle. She finally knows and understands what love feels like. Seeing Michelle before her, seeing Michelle pushing through just to try and talk to her, to make her understand, to reach out to her, she finally understands it. She gets it. It's exhausting, but in a good way. Unfortunately, the fight really did a number on her. Michelle begs her to stay, but it's no use. The Duchess snaps her fingers and 2 weeks have passed. Michelle gets out of her apartment and catches up with her friends. Clarissa now owns the bar and is booming in business. You check up and catch up with Violet. You talk to Robin and Benedict, seeing them really enjoying each other's company, hanging out with Marty. You even see Samuel in his human form with his boyfriend, and he seems really happy with his human life. Samuel seems to recognize Michelle though, having a familiar feeling, that feeling of déjà vu. But she doesn't try to make him remember the past few weeks though. After catching up with everyone, you head back to work, working the usual shift, watching the Dying Petals finale, where Canary decides to move on from Leslie and saying goodbye to her. But then, someone calls out to you, trying to get their items checked out. Michelle looks back at the items, apologizing to the customer. The customer laughs and comments about the Dying Petals ending. Michelle looks up and quickly realizes who she's talking to. It's the Duchess, reincarnated in her human form. Michelle, becoming a nervous wreck, asks the Duchess if they remember her. They say no, but they immediately take a liking to Michelle, probably because she recognizes her in some way, kinda like how Samuel did. The Duchess asks for Michelle's name. She tells her name, and the Duchess compliments her name. "I like that name," they said. The Duchess opens her mouth and says, "My name is..." I love this game, and its theme of transformative love and heartbreaks. I really cannot recommend this game enough, but I'll try again anyway. If you haven't played this game yet, I highly recommend that you do, since it does support the devs, and even if you watch the whole video spoiling it for yourself, I'm not quite sure why you would do that, it is still a worthwhile experience in my opinion. Now, I know I'm not the first one to talk about this game, but I still do hope I've introduced some unfamiliar people to this, in my own opinion, this masterpiece of a game.
What if I go? What if I stay? What if the toll? Wouldn't I fade? What if I'm late? Aren't I old? I'd like to entice you by my side. But what if I go? What if I stay? What is the toll? Wouldn't I fade? What if I'm late? Aren't I old?
Hi, ending Rory here. If you like the video, please leave a like and subscribe. It really does help me out a lot. If you do that, I'll give you a big warm hug. The next video will either be on Signalus or something completely different, so please do stay tuned for that. I've yapped enough though, and I hope I'll see you lovelies in the next one. Have a lovely day ahead. Goodbye!